£5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. Tonight on the show we've got Charlotte Griffiths. She's going head-to-head with political commentator Benjamin Butterworth. We've got historian Tony McMahon and GB News sports presenter Paul Coyte. But first, let's go to the news.
Hi there, I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Our top story is Russia's accused Ukraine of carrying out a car bomb attack that killed a Russian general in Moscow earlier. Yaroslav Moskalik, a senior officer in the armed forces, was the second top military officer to be killed in Russia in the space of 4 months. Well, the Kremlin has accused Kyiv of terrorist activity when the bomb went off close to the general's house. Russia's foreign ministry says they believe Ukrainian special forces were involved. Now, it comes as talks between the US envoy Steve Witkoff and Vladimir Putin have taken place in Moscow. They're trying to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. The Kremlin has described the talks as constructive. 3 men have been jailed for more than 100 years, between them for plotting to kill a former cage fighter convicted of Britain's largest cash robbery. Lewis Ahern on the left, his brother Stuart and Daniel Kelly on the right were found guilty of conspiracy to murder Paul Allen, who was shot in the neck in East London in 2019. Allen, back in 2009, was convicted for his part in Britain's biggest armed robbery, 54 million stolen from Securitas in Kent. Water bosses could be jailed for up to 2 years if they cover up illegal sewage spills. The government says tougher sentences in England and Wales will act as a powerful deterrent. And no one has faced a prison sentence since privatisation, despite those breaches of the law. It comes after a highly critical report from the public spending watchdog, which found regulators and the government have not done enough to increase investment, manage risk and improve public trust. Marks & Spencer says it stopped taking orders online as it continues to struggle with the fallout from a cyber attack. The problems with its payment systems began last weekend, with M&S confirming it had been dealing with a cyber incident. Well, it's now paused all orders on its website and app, including food deliveries and clothing. St Peter's Basilica has now been closed to mourners who were hoping to pay their respects to the body of Pope Francis. It's all ahead of his funeral tomorrow. So tens of thousands of people have been filing through, around 125,000 in total in the Vatican. Concerns raised yesterday following reports that people were taking selfies and streaming it live on TikTok as they walked past the late pontiff's coffin. Well, tomorrow the funeral will take place with hundreds of thousands expected to attend. World leaders and royal figures will also be there. Boxer Chris Eubank Jr. has missed the weight for Saturday's big fight with Conor Benn. He has been fined £375,000. Eubank Jr. had 2 attempts at making the weight of £160. That's what, 11 stone 6. He missed it fractionally just ahead of that grudge match on Saturday. Benn, by the way, who operated at welterweight for most of his career, so heavier, came in lighter than expected at 11 stone 2. And temperatures next week are likely to reach a massive 10 degrees above average for England and Wales for the time of year. The Met Office says it's going to begin on Sunday, then 24 degrees predicted for Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday could be similar, could even be a little bit hotter, possibly around 27. Bad news, though, for those in the London Marathon, because they could be facing temperatures of around 21 to 22 degrees this weekend. So if you are taking part, of course, get that water in. Keep it on board. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with more at around 8 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm Lee Anderson, the Reform UK Member of Parliament for Ashfield. And just this week in the House of Commons, we've had more nonsense. We've been talking about a woman is a woman and a man is a man. And, you know, we've been talking about the Supreme Court ruling that we finally found out that, guess what, a woman is a woman. And here to discuss that, we've got Charlotte Griffiths, who's the editor-at-large of the Sunday Mail. Yep. And our resident far left in the corner, the very out of touch, Benjamin Butterworth. He's going to make you laugh tonight, but Charlotte, seriously, what's going on? 2025, we're having a judge from a Supreme Court telling us what a woman is. I don't need any judge telling me what a woman is, and I certainly don't want a judge telling me that a bloke cannot go in a girl's changing room.
Oh, well, I actually did an article for the Mail on Sunday 5 years ago before this all blew up, because I went into a changing room on the way to the Christmas party and I hadn't left enough time for the Christmas party, so I had to change in the changing room into my Christmas outfit that I was buying from Zara. And there were 2 men in the changing room and all the cubicles were blocked, so I had to get changed in the sort of central area. And there were 2 men there, and I said to the changing room woman, "There are men in the changing room," and she said, "Yeah, what can I do? They identify as women." And I was like, "But
really?
they're men." Yeah, so this has been going on for years. And, you know, I know it's 2025 now. I wrote that article 5 years ago. Thank goodness we finally got some clarity. And even the Prime Minister has brought himself to admit this now. Because of this because of this ruling, actually, he's had to finally say, all right, go on then, a woman is a woman.
Yeah, there's been some confusion there, Benjamin. I mean, Sir Keir Starmer, just a short while ago, was saying a trans woman is a woman, and now he's changed his tune.
Well, I think this ruling opens more problems than it resolves, because it doesn't actually say...
Here we go.
It doesn't say a transgender woman can't go in the women's loos. It says that you can stop them, but not that you must. So there remains an enormous grey area. And actually, you know, obviously a woman has a vagina and a man has a penis, but there is a group of people in society, even though it makes society a bit more complicated, for whom their body and their identity are in conflict and always has been. And if you think about it...
We understand that, Benjamin.
If you think about it, the gender recognition certificate, the thing that lets you legally change your sex, was 21 years ago. So there are people that have had full operations, lived their lives, been legally recognised as a woman that were born
But what about what Charlotte says earlier? You know, she's in a changing room, a lady wants to get changed, and there's 2 blokes in there identifying as women. You know, back in the day, Benjamin, back in Ashfield, back in the 80s and 90s, these pair of loonies would have been dragged off to the local Nick and probably charged with something.
And thank God we moved on from that. Because I think that's a horrible way to lead society. You know, these people deserve the same dignity and the same security as anybody else.
Oh.
And I think the reasonable...
What do the women deserve?
Well, this is the thing, though. I don't accept, and my women friends don't say this either, that just because someone is a transgender woman, that they are somehow a threat. They're not. Often they're even more at risk than women that live
Charlotte,
with
all
depression.
right, let me ask Charlotte a really basic question. How did you know they were men in the changing room?
Because they had beards and they were wearing men's clothes and they were men. They were trying on women's clothes, actually. I will say this about them. But actually, it wasn't even about their bits, as it were. It was, or that I felt threatened. I didn't want to be, you know, taking my clothes off in front of a man. It's just an unusual thing to have to go through. And the point is about this ruling is that now there's clarity. So, you know, somebody can't just, on the spur of the moment, for convenience, for whatever reason, declare themselves to be a woman so they can use a changing room, go into a woman's space. And also, when I wrote that article, I got labelled a TERF and trolled to the ends of the earth. And all I was doing was saying, do you mind if I get changed, you know, among other women? Because that's how I've...
Or alone.
Or alone, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, Benjamin, is there, surely?
Well, I don't want to get changed in front of other men or other women, right? I'd always rather the privacy of it, and I suspect that's the answer that you'll get in public places, right? That you'll have cubicles, and actually, I reckon you'll have more unisex toilets, which is the last thing that campaigners wanted. But I really just think that there is a demonisation and a fear-mongering of a tiny group of people that really don't have life easy.
It's not. The only demonisation is coming from people like you who keep raising this nonsense all the time. Nobody out there in the real world's talking about this.
Well, they weren't until they whipped up the fear, because people have been able to legally change their sex for more than 2 decades, right? For most of your adult life, this has been the law, and yet people weren't scared of it before. I think the problem came when you got this idea that you could just change it on the flip of a button rather than having a 2-year legal process. I think that's a reasonable criticism. But I would just point out there are people that have medically transitioned that look on the face of it just like Charlotte, like any other woman.
Yes.
The idea they should be in the blokes' toilets is a problem.
Listen, if they've medically transitioned, then that is actually different, because I have to say, you know, the reason why men dressed as women were able to rape women in women's prisons were because they had the ability to rape women, because they had all their tackle in place, you know, and that's the difference, is people taking advantage. Nobody's saying that you know, women who believe that they are men, or men who they believe that they are women, are a threat. It's the people that take advantage.
So, a man that transitions to a woman but still wants to sleep with a woman, is that a lesbian?
Well, lesbians are up in arms about this.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, because there are a lot of men on lesbian dating apps and in lesbian bars.
Yeah.
And actually, a lot of lesbians are saying, we don't want men in our lesbian bars because we're lesbians.
Yeah, and we're women.
Yeah, and we're women. Yeah, so it's a fiendish debate. But nobody is saying that they're threatened by trans men. It's the people that take advantage of the system, I think. And the system's been gamed. And now it won't be gamed as much because of the ruling, I think.
Benjamin, the system is being gamed. Do you agree?
I think that there have been examples like the rapist in Scotland that Nicola Sturgeon defended putting in a women's prison. Well, that person decided halfway through the court case and made no effort in private to look like a woman.
Yeah.
They were clearly taking advantage. And the idea that someone who transitions at 25 to be a woman and then is in women's sports is almost certainly going to be unfair. But what I think is sad is that, you know, a transgender rapist, for example, is an appalling human being regardless of being transgender. I don't think the rest of the people trying to lead their lives should have their boundaries and their rights affected by someone among their community.
You've got children, Charlotte, haven't you?
Yes.
So, I mean, how do you feel about this nonsense in schools now where some teachers on the left it will suggest to some children that they may be born in the wrong body or they might be a different gender? This nonsense has got to stop.
Yeah, I think in schools, absolutely no way, because I didn't even know about this until 5 years ago, until the Zara changing room incident. So why should my daughters know about it at the age of 5 and 7? They shouldn't really. And I have to say, you know, my daughter literally had no idea that people had different skin colour. They just didn't know.
Yeah.
Because they're little.
Yeah.
And they've learnt that at school. Yeah. So now they've started describing people by their skin colour. That never happened before they were basically taught. And there's things like that that are taught to kids at school. I just don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, there's lots of things that are taught at school today, you know, different genders. We talk about white privilege and nonsense like this. Surely, Benjamin, in the school, little children should be left to figure it out for themselves.
I don't see it that way because...
Well, that's a surprise.
The idea that knowing about gay people or transgender people will somehow make them that way, which has long been the claim, I think is absurd. You know, I learned about World War II in secondary school, but I'm yet to invade Poland. People are capable of having the knowledge without affecting them in a bad way.
I'm not...
It helps them be less
I'm
ignorant
sure
and be more aware.
Poland will breathe a sigh of relief that Benjamin Butterworth is not going armed to the teeth right now. Charlotte?
Nobody's worried that my kids will suddenly become trans or gay. And by the way, I never brought the gay argument into it whatsoever. No, I'm not thinking that. I just think the innocence of youth is to not worry about these things and to see people as people, regardless of their skin colour, gender, race, anything, you know, and that is being... you know, put on to children when they're too young.
Little children, they're not sexist, they're not racist, they're
No,
not
it's so
misogynistic, they're
innocent.
just children.
So where does it start, though? Because clearly there are people with those views, and you hear kids with those views, chances are it comes from home. And that's not doing those kids any favours, and it's certainly not doing the black kid in their class or the person that comes out as gay or trans. And I think it's schools' responsibilities to make sure that young people don't have that ignorance, that they are familiar and au fait.
Yeah, but they're children with children, Benjamin.
Yeah.
It's just because a little boy picks a doll up, it doesn't mean he wants to be a woman. And likewise with little girls want to play football.
I wasn't taught about gender ideology at school, and I am not homophobic. I have lots and lots of gay friends, and I didn't need to be taught to like them. I just understood them, you know, without having to be taught by a teacher.
But not long ago, it was illegal to mention this in schools from the late 80s until 2003, the year I started secondary school. You couldn't even have books that referenced gay people or two dads of a kid, right? And that has had a legacy. That has left lots of people with homophobia and they're raising kids. And that's why I think it matters that schools have broad education. That means you're aware of all this stuff. And if you're a kid at school with two mums or two dads, then other kids should know that that's also normal and acceptable and they shouldn't be bullied.
Yeah, but you don't have to be taught that. At the school gates, if you see one of your friends, and you're a 5-year-old girl, and you see one of your friends has two mums, you then just get that. You just get it by seeing it. You don't need to be taught that that's a good or bad thing. You just know it's normal because you see it around you.
What we're doing, Benjamin, by doing that is telling people that they're different and some are different to the rest of society. But they're not really, they're just parents.
Let me give you another example, which is we've had self-appointed community leaders from the Muslim community who have been out trying to ban this in parts of Birmingham. It's quite high profile a couple of years ago. Now, their kids are just as likely to be gay as anyone else's kids from a liberal household, but they're going to have a hell of a time if they are with parents like that. Now, if you're growing up in one of those households, I think the school should offer a safety to you and the comfort that you can be who you are and how you can live your life as a person of that identity when you don't get that at home. I think that's a benefit schools can...
Killer question, guys. Do you think it's right that a person can identify as a llama?
No, obviously not.
This is what the Labour Public Health Minister said a few months ago.
I think she was joking, to be fair. I think llamas are pretty cool, so maybe.
Well, she wasn't joking. I mean, that actually has happened. There are cases of kids identifying as a cat and then their mum sticking up for them and going off on tirades on social media saying how unfair it is that their daughter isn't treated like a cat at school.
If one of my children back in the day would have come home presenting as a cat, they'd have been turfed out of the house at 10 o'clock at night and told to come back in the morning. But coming up next, we've got Real World, Real People with historian Tony McMahon.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
We're seeing on the screen now some of the elements of the board. Some of the things that have been discovered have to do with transport. We've found quite a lot of wagons, haven't we, and wheels. Now, is this quite unusual?
It is, and, you know, we don't know, because we've got the iron tyres but not the wheels and the vehicles, whether these were wagons or chariots or both. But to the extent that some of them are almost certainly wagons, then that is a first for Iron Age Britain. So, you know, it's very interesting. And to find this quantity of objects together is really unusual.
Would you like to speculate on why so many objects have been found in one place?
Well, it could be that they are the remains of funeral pyres. There have been no human remains found with them, but we know that with, you know, one of the Iron Age rituals was to deface and burn objects which would then be presumably taken to the afterlife. It was at the side of the road leading up to the enormous Iron Age hill fort of Stannick, and maybe it's something like that. I like to think of it as potentially the Appian Way in Rome, where the tombs lined the road on the way into the city, but that's a bit fanciful.
And one of the things we can deduce from this is wealth, can we not?
Absolutely.
I mean, these people have jewellery, they have sophisticated household items, and they have these vehicles which are pretty sophisticated.
Yeah, exactly.
These were rich people.
They were, and the quality of the objects, the horse bits are quite oversized compared to what we normally find, and they are embossed with coral and enamel, and that, again, is unusual and indicative of wealth and trade links as far as the Mediterranean.
GB News, the People's Channel.
On Thursday, the 1st of May, voters across England go to the polls.
In a series of council elections.
Mayoral elections.
And one crucial by-election.
They'll vote on the local issues that matter to them and let the parties know where they stand.
We'll be here throughout the night.
Live around the country.
As the first results come in.
And from 6 a.m. on Friday morning, as it all becomes clearer, we'll be here to discuss what it means for you.
Vote 2025, the people decide, from 11 p.m. on Thursday.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's time for real people from the real world, and I've got historian Tony McMahon joining me today. Now, I've been reading your notes, Tony, and I'm looking here. I've got UFOs, I've got Knights Templar to the British, royal family scandals, all sorts of stuff on here. A multi-skilled person.
Well, I'm a believer in extraterrestrial life, and I don't see why they wouldn't have made contact with us at some point. It's really... what's interesting is all these hotspots. These UFO hotspots. There's one in Liverpool, actually.
Is there really?
Yeah, there is. Liverpool's one. And, of course, there's the Falkirk Triangle up in Scotland, which is our very own Bermuda Triangle in the UK. There's been loads of UFO sightings up there. And then, of course...
they drink a lot of whiskey up there, though, don't they?
They do.
Yeah, so that could explain a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, they've had some interesting sightings up there. One guy had his trousers ripped off in the forest, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
There's a name for that.
Yeah,
we're not going there. It's a family show. Yeah, go on, carry on.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's been so many sightings. You've got to... And by the way, by a lot of people at the same time. And sometimes at airports, you know, there's a very interesting one at Chicago O'Hare Airport a few years back where even the air traffic controllers saw something that was a bit untoward. So I think they've been to visit us, they've been had a look. Are they hostile, are they friendly? We don't know. There's some theories that, you know, there's some theories out there that our politicians are in contact with them. You know that one? Do you know that one?
Well,
and they have secret meetings in Antarctica with them.
Well, I know you're a great advocate for separating fact from fiction. Yeah. You'd be no good as a politician, actually. You're no good as an MP. Yeah. That is a fact. So tell me more about that.
Well, you know, I like playing with the... I'm always intrigued by the kind of conspiracy theories and you know, where they come from.
What about the chemtrails?
Oh, all that, you know. I mean, I don't believe. I think that's... So
I do get asked about that a lot. Chemtrails, yeah. And I don't know what to make of it, to be honest with you, Tony. Are people spraying our skies to make it rain? Are they doing that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think some of the conspiracy theories, what is they've got a little hint of truth in them, and you've got to strip away all the stuff that's come around them and just say to people, yeah, that bit's all right, that bit's true, but the rest of it, you know, you've got to kind of, you know, calm down. Just,
so the thing is, Tony, is a lot of people making YouTube videos now with all sorts of conspiracy theories on. And sometimes people believe what they're saying. Sometimes it is true, or there might be a grain of truth in there, but people are making a good living out of putting a lot of misinformation out there.
Oh, I mean, I saw one the other day that the secret messages in the Teletubbies. You know, it's very dark stuff in the Teletubbies, you know.
But they're making a lot of money, aren't they, on these YouTube channels?
Yeah. And, of course, the thing, as you said about chemtrails, this whole thing about can the government control the weather? I heard one that they said that the federal government in the US was threatening bad weather against Texas unless they voted in a particular way. I mean, come on, this
is just mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you study history, Tony, I mean, most of the things when we watch these historical programmes on the History Channel or whatever, we do learn a lot, but and it covers a hell of a lot of topics. But what is the couple of standout moments in your career where you've discovered something or learned something and it's blown you away?
I'm doing at the moment. Actually, I'm writing 3. I'm not advertising this, but I am.
You're not advertising, but
I am really. I'm writing 3 books on the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar is my big topic of interest. I love the Knights Templar.
To anybody who doesn't know what the Knights are, Knights Templar, what is it?
They were like holy warriors, like 700-800 years ago. They were the shock troops of the Crusades. Every young man in Europe wanted to be a Knight Templar.
Proper knight.
A proper knight with the red cross on the white mantle and all this sort of thing, fighting for Christ, all that kind of thing. And then they were suppressed. They were annihilated by the church. The church turned on them. And ever since, people have been saying, well, why is it? Did they find the Holy Grail? Did they find the Ark of the Covenant? And so on. And I'm working, actually, with a couple of historians at the moment on the theory that, actually, the Romans may have brought the Ark of the Covenant back to Rome. You know, when they destroyed the temple in Jerusalem. Yeah. It may have come into the Knights Templars' hands. And some people believe it's down in the Vatican's secret archives.
It's all a bit Indiana Jones, mate. This is,
but I like this stuff.
Do people actually go looking for this stuff?
Do you know what? The Israeli authorities actually demanded permission from the Vatican to go and have a look down in the archives to see if they did have the Ark of the Covenant and the menorah, and had that been taken from the temple when the Romans destroyed it 2,000 years ago. So I love that stuff.
So if you could go on one of these adventures to look for something, to find something, what would it be?
Oh, I think I've got a thing about the Ark of the Covenant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's find it. It's been missing since about 500 BC. It went missing.
What is it?
It's this. You remember Indiana Jones?
Yeah.
It's that. So it's that. It was this gold casket in which the Jewish people put the 10 Commandments and the rod of Aaron, the rod of Moses, other treasured items, and it was in the temple in Jerusalem up until 500 BC. Babylonians come along, smash the temple up. Goes missing. When the Romans get there, it's apparently still missing. They may have found it and taken it. That is a theory. But yeah, it was this magic casket, and you weren't allowed to touch it, and you weren't allowed to look in it, because we know from Indiana Jones what happens when you look in it.
Very dangerous.
You get zapped.
Yeah, you get zapped. Yeah.
So I'd like to go on a hunt for that.
So where would you start? Where's your gut feeling?
Oh, the Vatican. I go straight there.
Surely, you know, back in the day, back in the Second World War, the Germans would have been in there and nabbed that, wouldn't they?
Oh, the Germans. Well, it's funny. This book I've got out, Downfall of the Templars, very reasonably priced. Later on this year.
How much is it?
It's about 25 quid in hardback.
Reasonable price, yeah.
Yeah. I will be looking at the whole Nazi theory. The fact the Nazis did send people round looking for the Grail and the Ark of the Covenant. They went all over Europe. They went up to Iceland. They went out to Tibet. And this, in fact, Indiana Jones is partly based on these travels by these weird Nazis who were looking for it, because they thought if they got it, they'd win the war.
Yeah, I mean, this would have come straight from the top, wouldn't it? From Adolf Hitler himself. He'd have been obsessed.
Hitler and Himmler were obsessed with this whole occult thing. Himmler even tried to have this kind of like... he had a castle where he had a kind of Arthurian cult going on, and he brought these holy...
There's been a film made about that, hasn't there? I've seen it. Did they believe in werewolves as well? Some nonsense like that.
Oh, they believe in all
some paranormal beings and stuff like that, supernatural stuff.
Yeah, they had a whole division of the SS called the Ananeb, and they used to seriously research this stuff. Werewolves, vampires, witches, the whole thing, to kind of prove that the Aryans were the super race and they came from a different part of the world, or even from outer space.
Have you ever met a werewolf?
Well, I'm quite hairy myself, actually.
Okay, Tony, that was absolutely brilliant, a great discussion. Coming up next, we've got right versus left.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time for Right versus Left with Charlotte and Benjamin. And guys, has the Labour government given up on British industry? I'm thinking about steel, I'm thinking about mining, I'm thinking about fishing, and the big one in this country at the moment is hospitality, Charlotte.
Yeah, I was reading celebrity chef Tom Kerridge, who's been speaking this week about how the hospitality industry is on its knees. And of course, we've been talking about farmers and steel non-stop, and I'd sort of forgotten that, of course, the hospitality industry is a massively important part of our culture. And because of national insurance rises, basically they're breaking even at best. And what Tom Kerridge is saying is, you know, it's full of fear. People are really afraid to start businesses and run businesses, and they're just sort of depressed, you know? It's depressing.
Benjamin, I mean, I spend a lot of time in pubs purely for research purposes and talking to business owners, and they're all struggling because of this NIC rise, which is just coming. It means extra costs, thousands of pounds a year. They've had to lay staff off. How is that helping British industry?
I mean, I think it's certainly tough. I've got friends that own pubs and restaurants and things, and they would say that. But they would also say that it's been hard to get staff because there's been a shortage of often migrant workers that want to do that. And so if we reduce massively the number of people that can come into the country, well, then that puts a real burden on those businesses trying to have people behind the bar in the pub or people working as waiters. You know, most waiters in this country aren't from this country. Indeed, almost half of the chefs in this country aren't British. So that doesn't help.
It didn't used to be like that, though, Benjamin, did it?
But I mean, well, the world has changed, and lots of people in that hospitality would say that. But on industry more broadly, I think there's two sides to it. One is that, you know, as Boris Johnson said, the first net zero zealot was Margaret Thatcher because she closed the coal mines. Yeah. So that had more of an effect. And actually, I think we're at a juncture right now because you've had this attitude for decades of it doesn't matter where it's made so long as it's cheap and the market will decide. Yeah. And I think we're seeing the consequences of that for good and bad. Yeah. And so if you don't want everything coming from China, fine, but your TV and your washing machine and your Zara outfit is probably going to be double the cost.
Your Zara outfit?
My Spanish Zara outfit. Well, it hasn't come too far, my Spanish Zara outfit, but I actually sort of agree that we should be reopening coal mines and producing our own energy here, certainly producing our own steel here and not shipping it in containers across the planet.
It's madness, Benjamin, surely. I mean, we've got... I know I harp on about this a lot, but a coal mine in Cumbria, the Labour Party will say that you can't use this coal in making steel in Scunthorpe. British Steel executives have recently said that you can use this coal. It has to be washed or cleaned or desulfurised, but you can use this and turn it into coke and coal. It can be used. It seems we're hell-bent in this country on destroying our industry and farming it out to other countries.
No, I think we have to be responsible, right? We can't encourage the climate change disaster that we're clearly on course for. And I think, you know, I know Britain makes 1% of global emissions, but we have to be.
Do you think it's right, then, Benjamin,
leader.
that we import coal from Japan, Australia and America when we can mine it here?
Well, I think it'd be better to not import it if we had more renewable energy.
No, but if we have to use it, surely it would be better to mine it in this country. And take the revenue from it on taxes.
But then you surely also would therefore agree that to have a whole new network of renewable energies done in this country and the technology developed in this country would be massively beneficial. We're a highly educated economy. We're a rare economy in the world with so many graduates.
I mean, look at China. They're opening coal-fired power stations all of the time, yet leading the world, Charlotte, in renewable energy. They've got it right, the transition. They've got the balance right.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also think we've got to think about the communities. You were saying earlier that these communities are looking for work. So why not reopen sources of industry where people can have jobs? You know, people in this country.
Well-paid jobs. Places like Cumbria crying out for jobs, Benjamin. They could open a coal mine there, 600 jobs. Miners earning 60 to 70 grand a year, completely regenerate the whole area and put some wealth and pride back into those communities.
But let's be honest, 600 jobs compared to the scale of the number of areas that don't have the industry that their parents' generation would have had is a drop in the water. I think something like developing new technologies is far more effective.
That's going to take 30 to 40 years, Benjamin. They want jobs now.
Well, then maybe ask a person I imagine you now admire. I can't quite work out your politics, Margaret Thatcher, right? She was the person that did this, and Harold Wilson, for that matter, right? They had a big effect on how we got here, and we failed to develop
How
the kind
dare
of jobs
you,
that
Benjamin?
would be
I come from a family of striking miners, I'll have you know.
That's why I say I can't quite work out which conclusion
No.
you've come
And
to.
I think what Maggie did back in, I can see why she did it, but the way she brutally shut down our mines and our industries and our communities, you know, people in my community will never forgive her for that. So that's my stance, Charlotte.
I think we've learnt from the Scunthorpe debacle that we've got to keep these things going. I mean, luckily, Labour did intervene, but would it have done otherwise?
Weren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Last minute.
I think obviously where America starts, often this country follows. America is saying, look, it's sensible now to start producing your own energy, electricity, steel. And, you know, we've got to sort of, it's a kind of anti-globalisation.
If you're making stuff in places like China, where their electricity costs are a fraction of what ours are, we're competing with them through this net zero nonsense. Our production costs are massive.
I mean, it's not net zero that's making the energy costs so high. It's things like the war in Ukraine that have really inflated it in the last couple of years. I think that, I mean, you know, the opponents of Labour slightly have to make their mind up, because one minute they say they're sort of communists that want to charge the state everything, and the next they say you've been dragged into nationalising it, you would have never done it. So they don't quite add up. I definitely think we're right to nationalise steel because, you know, think about the war in Ukraine. You know, we started to cut off our reliance on things from Russia as a consequence of that. Well, China is making moves that it could invade Taiwan. How would we cope in that scenario? How would we be self-reliant for something as essential as steel? We wouldn't. And so I do think we have to make that domestic.
You know what, Charlotte? We used to export steel to every country in the world, British steel, some of the finest steel produced ever on this planet. In fact, some of our ancestors could look at us now, they think we're mad.
I know we should take a bit more pride in what we're really good at. And, yeah, as you say, we should be selling our steel abroad more often. And also protecting farmers, producing our own food. You know, there's lots of other industries, like the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
We just need to protect ourselves a bit and have some self-respect and respect for our communities and produce things ourselves.
But what we're good at is different to what our identity as Brits is. You know, we're actually still about the 8th or 9th largest manufacturing economy in the world, but what we manufacture is quite high value, high skilled products like cars and technologies. We make a fortune out of that, okay? We're brilliant at it, and we're a service economy. You know, 20% of our GDP is from banking and consultancy. That is huge numbers of good jobs, excellent jobs that the rest of the world would die for. The idea that the square mile produces more money than Wall Street is incredible.
The people that work in these high-tech industries, as you described, not everybody, not the young lads in Nashville or the young girls, can work in those industries. You know, there's still lads and lasses out there, whether you believe it or not, it might seem alien to you, Benjamin.
I'm from a council estate in Macclesfield.
That are prepared and are quite happy to go and grab a shovel and work hard all day, physically work hard and go home and forget about their day at work, digging the roads, digging trenches, laying bricks, whatever. There's still people out there that want to do them jobs.
Well, I mean, my dad's a decorator, so I know that. He still does that to this day. But what I would say is that, actually, you know, the last Tory government wouldn't let us build any houses. Maybe if we build some houses, which would mean that people my age can afford to buy them and everyone else can afford to have a job like that.
Well, on that note, what we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to go to the yes or no quiz. I know you've both done this before. I've slipped a few Rummans in to see if we can catch Benjamin out. We don't want the left in the corner winning this, but you never know. We'll start with you, Charlotte. Are people in this country feeling better off under Labour?
No.
Benjamin?
Yes.
He said that with a straight face, but I'll give him that one. Benjamin...
Is anything straight about me?
No need. It's only 7 o'clock-ish. Should British Steel be nationalised?
Yes.
Charlotte?
Yes.
In agreement. Charlotte, should the Cumbrian coal mine be reopened?
Yes.
Benjamin?
No.
Hates the working class. Benjamin, should we scrap net zero targets?
No.
Charlotte?
Yes.
Good answer. Benjamin, can a woman have a penis?
This is where I lose.
That's right, lost, exactly, so I can't give you that.
My answer would be, clearly women don't have penises, but trans women are real, and we have to accept that.
OK. Charlotte?
No.
Charlotte, you are the winner. I knew that would get him straight away. He doesn't know the difference, obviously. But, yeah, come back on one, Charlotte. Net zero, you said, well, yes, we should scrap it. Why is that?
Well, I just think it is decimating our steel industries and all the other industries. You know, it's an unachievable target. As I said last time I was on the show, I actually believe in there's a climate crisis, but I just don't think net zero is the way to get there.
Yeah, if this island sunk tomorrow, Benjamin...
Which it might, under climate change, well said.
If it sunk tomorrow, it wouldn't make any difference to the Earth's atmosphere.
Well, if only, you know, politics weren't a thing, right? We can be a leader on this, and there are two...
But China's leading on this, and they're still opening coal-fired power stations.
Well, China does have a net zero target of 2060, 10 years after ours.
Well, that's a bit more realistic, isn't it, really?
Well, except that people like you say we shouldn't have a net zero target.
We're buying solar panels from China made by coal-fired power stations.
And
it's
steel,
nonsense.
it's coming over on a boat.
It's absolute rubbish.
We're outsourcing
We're
our
buying
emissions.
steel from India. You know.
I think when you're halfway through trying to fix the problem, then you're going to have those kind of contradictions.
But why not
and
transition like China's doing? Use the fossil fuels while you're transitioning to a net zero position.
I mean, China has a fondness for electric vehicles that we don't yet have, and that's one way to help reduce emissions. Also, frankly, if we had fewer cows, we'd have less emissions, so maybe we should eat less meat.
Blame the cows for the world's problems, Charlotte.
I think electric batteries are not good for the planet, and they're certainly made abroad. And forget about the cows. These electric vehicles aren't as clean as we think they are.
And then you see these yuppie types, these champagne socialists, a bit like Benjamin, going to these festivals, having their electric cars charged up by generators.
Look, but all these things, these technologies can make the world a cleaner place, a more sustainable place. But also it matters that we're Britain, because we've got such an educated workforce. We've got so many people experienced in science and technology that we could make billions and billions out of this if we lean into it.
Yeah, so Planet Butterworth, where you live most of the time...
Which is sustainable.
It's not sustainable. Lots of people in my neck of the woods, mate, are really, really angry about this net zero nonsense. It is a nonsense to me. I think we should take a leaf out of other countries' books, like China, who are doing it sensibly. They will conquer the world at some stage by doing the things rightly. You know, transition, sensible, use your fossil fuels, make this stuff, sell them to the rest of the world, but at the same time lead the world in renewables. It's achievable. They're doing it, and they're taking advantage of us. But coming up next, we've got Last Orders with Paul Coit.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The unsettled weather continuing across southeastern parts of Europe. Heavy showers and some frequent lightning here, but mostly settled elsewhere. Showers continuing across parts of Greece, around the Adriatic coastlines. The odd shower also affecting Barcelona, but otherwise much of Spain and Portugal largely settled. Plenty of sunshine and fairly similar across Madeira and Tenerife, though it could be quite breezy here at times, particularly around coasts. And it's across Tenerife where we'll see the best of the sunshine, also the best of the temperatures, with highs of 26 Celsius.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's almost the weekend and we can expect some rain and showers at times, particularly on Saturday. Otherwise, there's going to be lots of dry and warm weather. A different story in the northwest, though, turning wet and windy here. And it's also going to be quite a wet end to the week across Northern Ireland. A frontal system moving through here, eventually dragging in some cloud and rain across western parts of Scotland, western parts of Wales and also southwest England. This could be heavy at times, particularly across hilly areas, but it eventually clears away from Northern Ireland, allowing some clear spells to develop, and with light winds that means we're likely to see some mist and fog. Also across the southeast we could see some mist and fog, but it should remain largely dry through the course of the night. For the start of the weekend, that does mean it is going to remain rather damp across western parts of Scotland, largely dry to the very far east, but any rain should largely fizzle away through the course of the morning. A much drier start to the day across Northern Ireland, though some mist and fog patches likely in places, and still fairly damp across Wales and parts of southwest England, perhaps the odd shower across central areas too. Across the far southeast, some low cloud, but once again this petering out through the course of the morning, perhaps turning more showery in nature, which means we might see some more bright and sunny spells in between. But for Northern Ireland in particular, a much better day compared to Friday, much drier and much more in the way of sunshine, but elsewhere it's likely to be a slightly more cloudier picture. But where you see any breaks in that cloud, it is going to feel very warm for the time of year, highs of around 19 degrees Celsius across the far southeast. Now, the second half of the weekend, there's going to be less cloud around, more in the way of sunshine, feeling very warm in that sunshine once again, particularly across the southeast. But a different story across northwest Scotland, turning quite blustery here, cloudy with outbreaks of rain. And into next week, we have high pressure building, lots of sunshine and temperatures improving day by day. So by the time we reach Tuesday and Wednesday, feeling very warm indeed.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
That sounds like last orders at the bar. I've got GB News sports presenter Paul Coy and Tottenham fan. Not going very well these days, mate, is it?
Well, no, it's not. But then again, it's all very well, you know, as you being Nottingham Forest. Is this the reason you come in just to bait me? Is that what the reason
well,
you asked me in?
It's funny you should say that, because earlier this week we went to is it the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? Is that what they call it now? I went last year, actually. I think it was last year with Forest. Yes, you beat us, but the atmosphere was terrible, mate.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was terrible. There's no noise there.
It's usually when we get when big teams turn up, that's when you get the extra.
No, mate, it's the prawn sandwich brigade sat there paying goodness knows how much for a meal, and he seems to have lost that heart and soul which White Hart Lane had for me.
But what about that south stand, which is like it's
a beautiful ground.
It's huge. The thing is, when the noise is there. So, for example, you know, there's European games coming up, and a huge European game. That's when you're truly going to feel it. But you know, White Hart Lane, we can always look back and think. And I hosted the very last day of White Hart Lane, which was, I don't know if you remember that. And then we had all the crowds came down from the stands, completely surrounded the pitch. So interestingly, before we actually organised the whole thing, so we sat in a meeting. And this is before the last game at White Hart Lane, you know, and there was players, you know, we had about 48 players, old players are going to be there. Huge thing, the whole world was going to take it, and they wanted me to host it. So we sat in a meeting beforehand, and they said, right, well, this is how we're going to do it, you know, we're going to have the players. I said, well, can I ask a question? What are we going to do if supporters run on the pitch? And they said, it's not going to happen. I said, look, I'm a Spurs fan. Trust me, if I know they said, it's not going to happen. Anyway, I was told, look, don't worry, this is nothing to do with you don't have to worry about it. Although it turned out I was the one that had to clear it because I was the one that had to go. I was like the white horse with the microphone who then said, look, everybody, you're going to miss something. So eventually, after seeing a whole pitch covered, slowly people went back, and then we had the most amazing ceremony. And then I said the last words, and then the rain started, and we're thinking this is the worst weather ever we could have for a goodbye. And then there was a big rainbow.
I mean, the stadium we've got now is incredible. I would say it's the best in the country. I would say it's better than Wembley, actually.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm sorry, I was just talking about Wembley. I'm going there Sunday.
Yes.
With Nottingham Forest. Are Tottenham going there this weekend at all? No.
No. We did spend a season there, so we decided, let you have your moment. Because when you talk about Wembley and Spurs at Wembley, the last FA Cup final. It's been a long time that we won the cup, but who was it against that we won in '91? I can't remember.
Yeah, but I think Forrest was hoodwinked that day because Paul Gascoigne should have never stayed on the pitch that day. You've got to admit he made awful fouls. And that would have changed football in history. But I'm not here to crow about Nottingham Forest.
We're 33 years on, and still we're going to worry about Spurs
in a Champions League spot. And
you are, Matt. No, they're absolutely brilliant. I love and everybody has a second favourite. And I'm not just saying it because I'm with you, but I look at Nottingham Forest. And I'm old enough to. I know I don't look it, but I am old enough to remember when you won the title under Clough.
Fact check, he does look it actually.
Yeah, yes. I've still got makeup for this morning, you see. So, but looking back at '78, do you remember the song? Do you remember the single, the hit song?
We've got the whole world in our hands.
Yeah. And even as a Spurs fan, I bought that 7-inch.
Yeah.
So they were very happy times, and I remember that, the European trophy. So I do have a soft spot for Nottingham.
Yeah, I was. I get to. Through my job, I get to speak to John McGovern sometimes. The
captain.
What a great man he is, and always got some great stories to tell. But Tottenham players, they've had some fantastic players over the years. And one of the players that really got me hooked on football in the 70s, I would say, when I used to play for my school and stuff like that, was Glenn Hoddle. I thought, what a superb footballer he was.
In my opinion, he's the greatest footballer I've ever seen. And I'm not just saying it as a Spurs fan, because I remember turning up as a kid and used to see him just warm up. And he would just flick the ball up and we'd all stand there just watching this guy play. And years later, I got to know him. And this happened about 10 years ago. And I've been working at Spurs for 10 years. And I get a phone call. And I was out with my wife. I said, hi, is that Paul? I said, yeah. And I said, who's this? And he went, it's Glenn. I went, Glenn who? He said, Glenn Hoddle. I went, hi, Glenn. How are you? So even now, if ever Glenn Hoddle, my kids will go, oh, hello, Glenn. Because my voice changed. Because he was my childhood hero. And I don't know about you, but there's something about footballers from when you're growing up, even when you meet them, and even if you get to know them, there's still that.
Of course it is, because they're your heroes. And the thing about Glenn Hoddle, for me, is he made it look easy.
Yeah.
It made football look easy, and some players say it is easy, and it may be easy for them, but for us mere mortals, it's not, is it?
I've had it when some of the old players. I remember Mickey Hazard saying once that every now and again we get the old players would play together, and you get people would pay to play with them, and he's going, cool, look at his balance, it's amazing, he's got no balance. And I'm thinking, Christ, I'm exactly the same.
Yeah.
You see that they would move. I mean, someone like Glenn would see something 100 yards away, and he would just land it. And I said to him once, this is only recently, I said, well, how would you do that? I mean, because for us that would just play football, we could never do anything like that. And you put backspin on it. And he said, well, what I would do, I said, was it like a golf club? He said, yeah, it'd be just like picking the right golf club. So at the start of the game, I'd hit one about 70 yards, and you can tell the weather would make a difference, whether it was raining, whether it was clear, what the grass was like. So he said, I'd hit a test one, and where that would land, I would then know for the rest of the game.
But also, Paul, to be fair to him, back in the day in the 70s and 80s, we had defenders that would chop him down as well.
Good old days. Yeah. Tommy Smith.
Yeah.
He did that to Ozzy Ardiles. I remember playing for Swansea, and Ozzy got the ball, and he'd just come over from Argentina and thought this is easy, and then welcome to England.
He had some players that could really dish it out as well. Joe Jordan was one.
Yes.
He was. He could dish it out, and some great defenders. If you're going back into the 70s and 60s, Chopper Harris at Chelsea, he could dish it out as well.
You know who they said was the worst though for Leeds, because there's a few.
Dirty Leeds.
Yeah, dirty Leeds.
Say that, dirty.
So
Leeds.
we're just. I think even Leeds fans would say they sort of wear it as a badge of honour back in the day. But Johnny Giles.
Yeah.
He was one.
Great footballer though.
Fantastic footballer. Johnny Giles, and the other one was Alan Clark, another great footballer
Sniffer.
that they would always say, yeah, but he was crafty.
Yeah.
So whereas you would get some of them, you knew where you stand, you just get kicked. The ball would go away, but often they put iodine on their studs, which was a nice gesture, I think.
Yeah, I think that's
nice clean win,
yeah,
you know?
clean win. We need a pint pot, Paul, because you're going to pull a pint now. If we just shift this
I'll tell you
iPad,
what, this is not going to be good.
The one with the speckles on.
Right,
no,
okay,
no,
this one here?
The next one there. Look.
Okay,
yeah,
this one here.
That's
okay,
the proper
fine.
neck oil.
Right, okay,
so
I'm ready.
you have the neck oil pump here.
Yes.
And you've got to pull a pint there.
Right, okay.
And yeah, it's funny, it's 30 seconds you've got to.
Right, who's been the worst, by the way?
Oh dear, we've had lots, mate. We've had
And what's the worst marks
We've been 0. But
oh, it's been a 0?
We've shown nearly 2 years now around
Right,
there.
okay.
There've been some corkers, mate.
You've never been into minus before?
No.
So I should drink light and bitter, so it used to be about half and half.
Yeah, you can go for that.
Right, okay.
So you talk about Leeds. They're the great team back in the 70s, and I guess when they got rid of oh dear me, you can put that on the bar.
I got a glass of milk.
I mean, if you stick it down bar, mate, we spoke about Laurel and Hardy earlier, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
It looks like they've pulled that point. To be honest,
It did.
I mean,
you know what? I don't think Laurel and Hardy would even do something like it.
I think. Have
I been set up here?
You do the work of 2 men, Laurel and Hardy. Yeah, definitely.
So.
Yeah.
No. Do you ever do this yourself?
Let's have a go.
Come on,
I never do it, but
I know that's the thing. I've seen you having a go at everybody else, but it's all. Look,
it's a dodgy pump.
This is bleeding useless. See, it makes me feel a bit
dodgy.
bad.
I don't know what the landlady's been playing at, but
at least I've got a bit of beer on. At least I've got a bit of beer on mine.
We're going to bankrupt Adam Brooks.
I know.
Well, I can give you 1 out of 10. I'll give myself 0 out of 10. But predictions for...
It's the first win that we've had against Nottingham Forest this season.
Well,
I'll take that.
Hey, let's talk about that now before we go. FA Cup semi-finals this week. We've got Palace versus Villa.
Yep.
The mighty Forest against Man City.
Yep.
I want your predictions, Paul.
Right, OK, so Palace against Villa. I think Villa are going to win that. I don't think... I mean, Palace, they don't... I think it's going to be 2-0 Villa. I would love to be able to give you the win, Lee. I would love to be able to give you the win, but suddenly... Man City are looking a bit better, aren't they? You know, they got a win during the week. I think they're 6 unbeaten now. And even though they look very wobbly, I think what's going to save them is the FA Cup. So I would love to give you the win, and I do want Forest to win, but I think I'm going to go 2-0.
OK, well, that's disappointing.
To City as well. I just want to, you know...
In fact, I think my pint's coming a little bit better than yours now, Paul.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think we've got 2 teaspoons full of beer between the two of us there.
Yeah,
so
and I think that froth on yours is actually higher than Tottenham's league position.
Yeah.
Anyway, on that note, mate, that's Paul Coit. Thanks. That's last orders. Thanks for joining me on Lee Anderson's Real World. Been another great show, cracking guests. More of the same next week, but coming up next, we've got State of the Nation.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's almost the weekend and we can expect some rain and showers at times, particularly on Saturday. Otherwise, there's going to be lots of dry and warm weather. A different story in the northwest, though, turning wet and windy here. And it's also going to be quite a wet end to the week across Northern Ireland. A frontal system moving through here, eventually dragging in some cloud and rain across western parts of Scotland, western parts of Wales and also southwest England. This could be heavy at times, particularly across hilly areas, but it eventually clears away from Northern Ireland, allowing some clear spells to develop, and with light winds that means we're likely to see some mist and fog. Also across the southeast we could see some mist and fog, but it should remain largely dry through the course of the night. For the start of the weekend, that does mean it is going to remain rather damp across western parts of Scotland, largely dry to the very far east, but any rain should largely fizzle away through the course of the morning. A much drier start to the day across Northern Ireland, though some mist and fog patches likely in places, and still fairly damp across Wales and parts of southwest England, perhaps the odd shower across central areas too. Across the far southeast, some low cloud, but once again this petering out through the course of the morning, perhaps turning more showery in nature, which means we might see some more bright and sunny spells in between. But for Northern Ireland in particular, a much better day compared to Friday, much drier and much more in the way of sunshine, but elsewhere it's likely to be a slightly more cloudier picture. But where you see any breaks in that cloud, it is going to feel very warm for the time of year, highs of around 19 degrees Celsius across the far southeast. Now, the second half of the weekend, there's going to be less cloud around, more in the way of sunshine, feeling very warm in that sunshine once again, particularly across the southeast. But a different story across northwest Scotland, turning quite blustery here, cloudy with outbreaks of rain. And into next week, we have high pressure building, lots of sunshine and temperatures improving day by day. So by the time we reach Tuesday and Wednesday, feeling very warm indeed.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good evening, everybody. You're watching State of the Nation tonight on GB News with me, Matt Goodwin. On tonight's show, eyebrows have been raised as Home Secretary Yvette Cooper is reportedly open to a one-in, one-out youth mobility scheme with the European Union. But why are we even considering opening our borders to young people from foreign countries when 1 million of our own young people here in Britain cannot find work? Is the Labour Party finally starting to learn its lesson on immigration? Reports today say that the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, has taken the Home Office's view that the Office for Budget Responsibility has ignored the real impact of low-skill migration for too long. But is it all too little, too late? I'll be talking to a key expert on that very question. Now, get ready for Trump 3. Yes, we're only just getting used to Trump 2, but the US president has started selling Trump 2028 hats, despite a strict 2-term constitutional limit on presidential candidates. But how, if at all, could Donald Trump get around this? We're going to be talking tonight to a top constitutional